Hey guys, set up in the indoor hobby room, aka the basement, because it's winter time out. And today I want to compare the original 696 blades against the new v2 696 blades. So we'll get a weight on these things, CG difference, and I'll take some measurements with some calipers, and we'll see how they compare. Because I can't get out and fly because we're getting hit with some snow right now. So that'll be next. I'll do an electric and a nitro back to back with the originals versus the news, and we'll see how that goes. Pretty excited to try out the new blades.
Okay, so the first thing is the look. These things look incredible in person. And I'm sure this lighting is not going to do these things justice, but there's like a metallic glitter where you see the silver, and in the 696, and then in this stripe out towards the tip that is just awesome. And then ghosted into the carbon, you have the v2.0 logo, and it wraps around to the underside. Underside of these blades look just like the top side, really, with the only exception being the R, and the 696 is not on the bottom. And just for comparison, here's the original. These are a little bit dirty because they have been flown. The new ones have not yet. And I've always liked the look of the rail blades, but these new ones just, I mean, they're going to pop. Can't wait to see them in the sun. Okay, so next thing is take some measurements. Make sure these are zeroed out. Okay. So let's go with the originals first. The root of the rail blades have always been like 12 millimeters. And this way you can run them, there you can see that there. This way you can run them on a few different grips, and Matt supplies the washers to make up the difference if you have grips that are built for, what, I think 14 or 16 millimeters. He provides two different sets of washers. So the V2s come in 12 millimeters, just over. I find sometimes the grips, they can be a little tight in the grips, the rails, and sometimes you have to sand them down a little bit to get them to fit real well with the washers, but in my case, like on these ones, they didn't. You can see where they're just worn a little bit from the washers. Depends on the heli and how tight you run your grips, how tight or how loose. So next thing is, let's try the width. So I did go up and down the length of the blade to see if I could get an overall width, and I believe they are just about 62.5-ish millimeters all the way down. There might be some variation here and there, just small amount of variation, but until you get to the end of these blades, it's a typical style of the rails. You can see that the tip has a cut on the back side and a slight sweep on the front side. The V2s are essentially the same width. These seem to be, I mean, just a hair, within like 1/10 of a millimeter at its widest point. Yeah, maybe 1/10 of a millimeter larger, or wider, I should say, for whatever reason. Maybe just manufacturing. But for all intents and purposes, they're really about the same width. I mean, they may be just slightly wider, but when you stack them up against each other, I mean, they're basically identical. Same tip as the classic rail. It's got this cut at the end, sweep in the front. And it appears to be, just eyeballing it, I mean, virtually identical maybe just a, I mean, like I said, maybe just a hair of a difference because of manufacturing, but I don't think enough to say that the blade was designed any differently in its shape. Cord. Let's see if we can get a width on the cord here. Looks like here's the new V2 right in the middle of the blade. We're looking at 8.7, 8 points. Well, it's a little bit hard to get a read. Let's see at its thickest point. Maybe just a hair. Yeah, 8 point, almost 7, 6.5 to 7. It's a little bit hard to get a flat spot there, but you get the idea. Original blade, 8.586. Yeah, they're right around 8.6 millimeters thick in the cord. The root appears to be identical, in my opinion. The design appears to be identical. So I think the overall shape is the same. So barring the paint scheme, what's the difference? The big difference is going to be weight and where the weight is placed. So I went ahead and CG'd these, which I normally never bother doing with my blades. But because I want to see the differences, I went ahead and CG'd them. And this mark on the front of this blade is how it balanced laterally. Okay, flat, balancing this way. This mark is the old blade. This is the new. So I just transferred the mark over so that they're both on one blade. You can see there's a difference. Definitely a difference. Okay, that difference is about 40 millimeters, 40.5 millimeters. Yeah, it's right around, without getting too into the weeds, 40.5 millimeters difference inside. Okay, so the old blade was further out towards the tip. The new blade is 40 millimeters in towards the root. That should improve cyclic response. Okay, rails, in my opinion, are probably the best tracking blade. Once you're in a maneuver, it just kind of holds that maneuver because, in my opinion, the weight is so far out, and they're a fairly heavy blade. Which I like about the rails. However, when you're trying to do fast cyclic maneuvers, like especially, I really notice it in my aileron TikToks. I have a hard time, to be honest with you, with aileron TikToks. And until I tried new blades, then I could really feel the difference. Like Rotor Tech Ultimates, way faster off center than original rails. However, that being said, I don't find that my Ultimates auto is good. I don't find that they hold in maneuvers as well. And I actually, before I got used to them, I smashed a set of my buddy's Ultimates that he was letting me try because I was flying them like I would rails, and it was much different. So I replaced his with some rail blades, and I bought new ones. But what I haven't done yet is actually weighed them. So this is going to be a surprise to all of us. Okay, set up a scale. I'm going to have to go to handheld here. Grams, it's zeroed out. Okay, we'll do old, original, rail 696s first. Yep, that looks to be 190 grams. 192. Just gonna get all different directions. 190, just in case. Yeah, 190. 190 grams. I'm confident in saying they're 190 grams for one blade. Okay, here's the moment of truth. New 696 V2s. Wow, look at that. 200 grams. I wasn't expecting that. 198. 200. 202. Definitely heavier. I thought, if anything, they were going to be a little bit lighter. I thought they were going to remove some weight. So the big difference is They're about 10 grams heavier. Yeah, but that weight has been pushed to the inside of the blade, towards the root. So that's interesting. I'm going to have to weigh a set of the Ultimates. Now, the Ultimates are a little longer, obviously, because they come in at 700 millimeters versus 696 millimeters, but I don't have a set that's not on a helicopter right now, so I can't do it back to back. But I will throw those into the comparison because it's the other blade that I like flying. RotorTech, the originals, and RotorTech 700 Ultimates also perform well for me. But I'm surprised at that. 200 grams is what you're looking at per blade out of the new 696, but with a 40 millimeter difference toward the root of the blade. So that'll be interesting. We'll see how that goes. Okay, I grabbed an Ultimate, and this is the Ultimate 700. The blade itself, we're going to compare them to the rails just real quick. The cord width is about the same. The tip looks similar until you hold them up against each other. Obviously, the 700 is going to have a couple millimeters more over the 696, but you can really see how blunt the end of the tip is, where the rail is very much tapered, where you have kind of that straight tip out at the end of the Ultimates. The other thing to note is, looking at it, let's turn it around, that uptick on the Ultimate versus the rail, it starts back further, and it's a little bit more aggressive, okay? So if you look at it this way, you can definitely see the difference there versus there. So the trailing edge of the blade and the leading edge of the blade and the very tip, it's definitely a different tip design. Okay. CG-wise, funny enough, I believe this is not, you know, my method of using a Dubro balancer and whatnot may not be the most scientific, but it looks damn close to the weight placement of the RotorTech Ultimate as far as the new, compared to the new V2 rails. Now at the root is different, just like the tip. So here we're seeing a rail versus the Ultimate. I mean, major difference there. The Ultimate has this large kind of cutout angular shape, where the rail is just boom and you're onto the blade. Okay. So at first glance, like I said, if you didn't know any better and you picked up a RotorTech Ultimate and you picked up a rail 696, you're gonna say, oh, it looks, you know, very, very close. It does, but there are definitely differences when it comes to the root and the tip. Not to mention the root is thicker on these. So on the Ultimates, you do not run washers, and that could pose a problem for certain head grips. So just make sure you know your heli before you put Ultimates on. Where the rail is a little bit more universal because of the thinner root, you can run it in narrower grips, and you can also use the washers to run it in a couple different size grips. Okay, looks department. The Ultimates, I think, look really nice. They're really flashy. The only downside is if you don't like the purple. The glitter looks awesome, but if they offered it in a couple different color schemes, I think that would be great, because these would look really good with like an orange helicopter if it had orange, a red helicopter if it had red, you know, maybe a blue or a green. That would look really sweet. But just to have purple for everything is kind of, I mean, I don't have anything purple. So they're cool, but, you know, it can clash. So on to what I thought was going to be the most interesting thing, and that is the overall weight. So let's see what these come in at. Okay. Again, the classic, I'll call it, original 696
190 to 188. I think we ended up calling it 190, although now I'm getting 188. 190-ish grams, right? And then I think versus what, 200 grams for the new one. Yeah, 200 to 202. Okay. Ultimate 700 with a couple more millimeters because it's a 700, not a 696. 204, so maybe 2 grams ish. 202. 204. So I mean, damn close to the new rails in weight. So that's interesting. That's real interesting. We'll have to see how they fly. I'm really hoping, because to me the Ultimate 700 is, for my flying style, they don't feel as locked in as Rail 696s, but they do feel way faster off center. I don't know. They might have just a little bit more pop in the collective off center, but at like full collective, you know, there's no difference in my opinion. The stops are good, but I think the stops on those 696s are good. The autos I think are much better on the Rail 696 originals, without a doubt, in my opinion. But that's just me. So what I'm hoping for the new ones is that they've come somewhere in between. That would be my hope. But there's no way to tell until I test them. I think they look absolutely gorgeous, though. I mean, based on looks alone, this would be my choice, 100%. But again, performance is obviously gonna have to edge out the look department. But I will let you know my thoughts.